Today we are discussing data prep, and we're going to be jumping into Excel. First, I am Courtney Kearney, founder and owner of C. Kearney Consulting. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is part of our free webinar series, quick 30-minute tutorials on CRM every other Tuesday. Starting next Tuesday, the next two are going to be CoCentral specific. So if you have that as your CRM platform, feel free to register for those. If you don't have CoCentral or you just are interested in what that platform looks like, you're more than welcome to attend and feel free to call into those. I wanted to let you know that we have a ton of free resources in addition to these on our website. So if you go out to ckearneyconsulting.com, you can, there we go, check out the CKC stories, and then you can also check out the events. Our upcoming events, we have a marketing call on the first Wednesday of every month, and our guest speaker for March is going to be Julie Howlett. So feel free to attend that one. She's going to be talking about all things inbound marketing. Then we've got our free webinars, of course, every other Tuesday, and it's going to be about similar to what we're talking about, but more in depth for CoCentral specifically, and some of the tips and tricks and best practices that we have for importing data. I'm going to actually be on vacation, so Courtney Vance is going to be doing that one. And she's going to go more in depth on the Excel side of things too. She's definitely an Excel wizard, so she'll share some fun formulas with you on that call. Then on the 11th, we're having the CRM user group. I am actively looking for a guest speaker or a facilitator for that call since I'm going to be out that week. So if you are interested, please reach out to me, or if you know someone who would be great for that. If I don't find anybody, we would just might have to skip March. So definitely let me know if you have somebody that you would like to see facilitate that call. We have our past webinars available on the website, again, on the events page. And we have recaps on the CKC stories so that you can watch the webinars or just get a quick update on those. So feel free to check that out. Jumping into data prep and best practices. So looking at data prep, this is how to get your data ready for import into whatever system that you have as your CRM. Looking at the first tip, one and done. We get this all the time as consultants, but really trying to get all of the data into one spreadsheet will save you time and heartache. Instead of trying to get maybe 3 people's contacts information, prep it, import it, and then a week later do another person's, it's a lot easier if you just get it all into one spreadsheet and prep it all at once. So you don't have to keep doing the same task over and over for multiple data sets. It's easier if you get it all into one. Now, that said, one and done, you want to make sure that if there is something specific of why they were all in an individual data set to begin with, that you capture that. So the example that I gave is if you're importing contacts from maybe you have new hires that come with existing contacts and you're exporting their Outlook contacts and you want to import it into your CRM. If that's the case, there are things that are not going to be denoted that you would manually need to do. So if I have a data set from Natalie and Denise, I almost combined your names there for a minute. So if you have Natalie and Denise, if I just go ahead and combine them from the beginning, I'm going to lose which contacts were Natalie's and which contacts were Denise's. So whenever I open up Natalie's spreadsheet, I will want to manually add a column that says contact owner or original owner, whatever your nomenclature is for your firm, and put Natalie's name all down those contacts. Same thing for Denise's, so that we know once we combine them where that information originated from. So some of that is manual that you'll need to do before you combine them, but regardless, it's much easier to mark your data, combine it into one data set, and then start your cleanup and your prep. Follow a checklist. Data prep can be very overwhelming and you can get lost in the weeds and forget what you've done. So definitely leave yourself breadcrumbs or have a checklist that you're following. So breadcrumbs to me are things like once I've highlighted or once I've completed a column and I know it's clean, I turn it green. Green means go, green means good. Whatever those processes are for you, make sure that you've got one before you start so that you don't lose your place when cleaning up the data. Know the requirements. This is a big one and trips people up all the time. Be aware of what's required by your system for import. So for example, with the contacts, if you are going to submit it to your CRM for import, there might be things required like every contact has to have a status. Outlook is not going to have a status field. You might have to add that to your data set. Or something like an owner, or every address that you enter has to have a country. Whatever those are for your system, you need to know what those required fields are. System requirements. So for example, it might not take employee names. So the example that I gave of Natalie and Denise, it might not take Natalie in the owner column. You might need to replace it with an employee ID for those client or those contacts to be correctly categorized to Natalie and owned by her. So just know some of those requirements before you get started, because those can be time consuming depending on what happens with your data set. This is one of my favorites, sort, and resort. This will help you with duplicates, especially if you've combined a ton of data sets. This will help you catch that and do some cleanup. So we're going to stick with the example of contacts coming out of Outlook. First, you would search by the company name. So I'm looking for everybody that is at Radio Shack. Natalie might have John Smith at Radio Shack. Denise might have John Smith at Radio Shack. If I sort it by the company name, I might find it because it'll be Radio Shack. I say might because maybe Natalie's record says Radio Shack, maybe Denise's says Radio Shack LLC. So that's why I also sort by the first name to see what comes up. I do first name because also people can change their last names if they get married, divorced. So you want to search by the first name. Then you're searching by the last name. Are there any duplicates? Are there any people that have moved around? John Smith was at Radio Shack and now he's at, I don't know where people from Radio Shack went, Best Buy. So really looking at each of those as a unique sort is important. Same thing with address. The company names might be different. It might have been a formerly known as, doing business as. Those addresses might catch that. Now, if you're working with a lot of companies that office at the same location, the address might be the same, but the suite might be different. So that's something that you would want to pay attention to. And then sorting by email. Sometimes companies go through email changes. We'll look at that when we get into the example that I have. So sorting by email can help catch some of that as well. Looking at your common blanks and checking those and doing mass updates can be helpful for time saver. So for example, I always search every column for blanks. I want to know what's empty in my data set before I enter it. Some blanks are fine, like for this address to field. Not every address needs a second address set, like a suite number or loft number, what have you. Looking at that, I don't care if there's blanks. What I do care about is if there's a city missing, then my address isn't going to be complete. If there's a state missing, then I can fill it in based on the city. If the city and state are missing, is the zip code filled out? If the zip code is filled out, I can figure out the city and the state. If all three are missing, is the address filled in? Can I surmise it? Is an address that's at that same company also filled in? Those are where I want to catch those data sets. And then I can mass update if all of the, cities are missing or the city names are missing from a specific zip code, then I can fill them in all at once. Avoid value list pitfalls. And what I mean by this is if you have a value list that you are importing into, so maybe a contact type, is that contact type a decision maker, the marketing contact, an accounting contact? Make sure it matches perfectly. So what I like to do is filter by those values and then just copy and paste it straight from my CRM over. Even if it looks identical, there might be a space or a capitalization that I'm overlooking because I'm sick of looking at the spreadsheet and prepping it. So really making sure that those are one-to-one, because if you put in something like decision maker on your spreadsheet and your CRM says decision makers, you now have two that you have to go deal with in the CRM. So really making sure that those value lists are a perfect match. The other thing is if you have multiple values in a single cell, making sure that you have it designated correctly. So usually it's the tilde mark or a dash dash. So if, for example, my contact is both the decision maker and the marketing contact, and I have both of those and it's a multi-select value list, that's fine. I just need to make sure that what is separating them is correct, or I will create a new value that says decision maker tilde marketing contact. If in fact it was supposed to be two tildes, that separates my two different values. Now, Excel is my best friend. I love Excel. I know not everybody is an Excel fan or nerd like me. So some of the things that I want to share high level, I'm not going to geek out on you, is best practices and tips specifically around prepping your data. So looking at the filtering function in Excel is your best friend. We'll look at this once we get into the spreadsheet, but the filtering feature is definitely a feature that you want to lean into heavily. You want to filter by every column. Yes, every single column. So again, that you can filter by those blanks and look for that information. We always add a column above the header and we do column counts. So looking for the Excel formula that I've given you here, subtotal is a good one to use. And it is the, oops, where did that one go? The E3, oh, it's not gonna let me highlight it. E3 is just the first row below my header, and then all the way to the end of your spreadsheet, so that it will sum total your count, your data, the cells that have information in them. Why this is important is that it's another visual cue to you that if every contact should have a first name and every contact should have a last name, if the count is off, that means that one of your fields is missing data. So if the blanks didn't catch it, you might have to scroll through and see which one is missing it. It's just an extra CYA so that you can see what columns are missing information or missing data. The fill handle is helpful, especially when you're doing mass entry, or say that all of your contacts are active and you just want to fill the entire column with the active. So when you hover in the bottom right-hand corner of an Excel cell, your cursor will turn into a little black plus mark. This is called the fill handle. That allows you, when double-clicked, to fill the entire column with that information. Again, we'll look at it when we get into Excel here in a minute. So I wanted to dive into the idea of a checklist. Here is one that we use for our contact data. Your CRM might have checklist. If you want a further checklist from us, feel free to reach out, but this is just a short example. So when looking at the data for contacts, I want to look at each column, but what I'm looking for is last name changes. Did that trigger? Email issues. This is a big one. Did the dot get left off before the .com? Did the @ accidentally get changed to a different character? Looking at searching for anything that doesn't end in a .com. Did something get messed up there? Looking at email issues is a big one. For phone number formatting is another one. Did different characters get imported, so it's a space instead of a dot or a dash? Do you want to just have all of your phone numbers formatted where it's the parentheses, space, 3 digits hyphen 4 digits. You can use some formulas in Excel, to fix those, but you also want to know what your CRM accepts. So making sure that you know formatting of numbers. Address configuration, this is a big one. Has your firm decided to use the address to field for suite numbers, or is it all in address one and you just do comma? So here's the address, comma, suite number. If you have something like a building name, Thanksgiving Square, and then the address goes in address 2, making sure that that address configuration is correct, especially if you're using things like a publisher feature to where you're getting information out of your CRM into published documents like a resume or proposal, because if that address shows up on a reference, you want to make sure that it's uniform. Looking at zip codes, this is one that's easily overlooked. There are zip codes that start with 0, and Excel hates leading zeros. So it often replaces those or leaves out the leading 0. So you need to reformat the column so that that leading 0 will be there. Again, if you filter that column by zip codes that only have 4 numbers, it will catch that so that you can fix those before import. This is just a short example of a checklist. You will definitely customize yours to what you are looking for and what your needs are. All right, so now it's time for some Excel fun. We're going to look at a sample data set of contacts. All right, in the chat, will you let me know if you can see my data set? Perfect, thank you so much. All right, so what you'll see here is that the first row is my sub count. So the columns that you see on my screen, the 6 columns, all say 23. So I have every piece of data on my spreadsheet filled out for those columns. If I continue to scroll, you'll see my count is changed. So for address 2, I only have 12 address 2s. That's fine. When I look at my city, this should be alarming. So I am supposed to have 23 sets of data. I only have 22. So that tells me there already is a missing piece of information. With a data set of only 24 lines, 23 lines, I'm going to see it visually. But if you're talking about 20,000 records, you're not going to see that easily. So that number will be a very quick indicator that I'm not done prepping my data until that says the total that it should for all of my columns. All right, so a quick way to be able to filter is that if you highlight all of your headers, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a sort and filter icon. This might be in slightly different place for you if you are on a PC versus a Mac, but either way, that sort and filter icon should be displayed on your ribbon. All right, so filtered. We filtered the entire headers. We highlighted the header column or row, and we went up to our filters. We said filter. Now I'm going to scroll over to the city, and I'm going to select, I'm going to say unselect. And then we're going to go down to blanks. This is where that missing information can be completed, can be filled in. I can search by the zip code and I can figure out my city. Now, looking from column to column, I can do the same for state. It looks like all of the zip codes are there, but remember, we want to filter by the those that are only 4 to get the leading zeros back. So if I just put a leading 0 in here, well, something is weird because when I just clicked in that, that is not the information that I should be seeing. Okay, so when I put the leading 0 in there, it's going to disappear. If I turn both of these to text, so scrolling down, and I'm going to change the format type. It didn't change anything by appearance, but when I put that leading 0 in there, it's going to stay. So I can add my leading zero. We're good to go. Now, a quick way to get your data set back, you can go up to the top and say clear, and you can clear all of your filters so you can see everything again. This is helpful, especially as you start to filter multiple columns at once. So if I'm looking for a missing state, and let's say that the state was missing, but the zip code is also missing. So I can start to narrow down, okay, show me, take away the missings, show me the ones that have this set of information. After a while, if you've filtered a ton of columns, you go, oh, I don't know if I caught all of the filters if I've turned them off. Well, that's okay. You can come up here and just say clear. And now you have confidence that every column is, or every row is being displayed. Now looking at your subset of information, you want to, again, make sure that how you have your data displayed is how you want it to be. So for this one, the location, 1 Park Square, is the address 1, and then address 2 is the full address, including the suite. So just make sure that that's how you want it to appear when you come through. Same thing with your phone formatting. So you want to make sure that everything is uniform upon entry. So you can highlight that data set or the entire column, whatever is your comfort level. You can go to your format cells and you can say that it's special and that it's a phone number. Now, same thing back on that. If you don't want to do the text, you can make it a zip code so that you can quickly format that information. So you'll see it caught the ones that were blank, had no spaces, but it didn't catch these with the periods in. So now I can filter by just these that didn't reformat, and I can come through and manually delete. Now, if you attend in 2 weeks, Courtney Vance can help us with formulas, if you're comfortable using formulas, to remove or trim some of this information out. Did I freeze again? Uh-oh. Okay, so if I froze again for you, all I am doing now is going to, yes, I'm frozen. Okay, I don't know if it's Excel. Oh, you know what? The mobile one crashed because I had PowerPoint still open. I wonder if that might be part of the issue or if it's just my Mac and Zoom fighting again. I'm going to try one more share, and then if not, the demo part is over. All right, I'm going to reopen my Excel. All right, how about now? Do we have a screen back? Okay, it is not happy at all. I am so sorry about that. Hopefully I will get that figured out quickly and we will be good to go. For me, in 4 weeks, in 2 weeks, you'll be with Courtney Vance. And again, she will be going into in-depth on the Excel piece of things. This was more high-level data prep and looking at, let's see if that will help. I don't even know if you can see me at this point or if everything is frozen. So join us in 2 weeks for a more in-depth data prep for Excel and looking at formulas and tutorials that can help with prepping your data for import. So sorry for the technical difficulties, and you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thank you so much for participating today.